Scott Bounds represents District 44. We are in his neck of the woods, and I was looking around and asked Alex a second ago, I was like, where's Scott? He said, well, had some responsibilities in Jackson as he is chairman of Appropriations B on the House side, and so a lot going on. But he joins us from our Jackson studios. Mr. Representative, good morning to you.
Well, good morning, Richard. Proud to be in Jackson. Wish I was up there at home with y'all.
I think the last time you and I visited was at the Neshoba County Fair, so we're having to do it remotely this time, but certainly good to be back in your home district and your neck of the woods.
Well, glad to have y'all up there. This is just a tremendous effort that's going on the next 2 days there at the Pearl River Resort with Mississippi Farm Bureau Foundation and Farm Bureau and their team, Mike McCormick and Taylor McNair, all their government relations people teaming with Mississippi Food Network for a very, very, very worthy project and cause, raising money for hunger initiatives across the state.
Yeah, certainly a good thing. And beyond just this event, what the Farm Bureau Federation does and their focus on farmers and making sure that you guys at the state level and the folks that are in Washington as well are understanding the issues that farmers are facing and hopefully putting in legislation that is helpful to our farmers all across the state. And that covers a lot of different types of farming.
Well, yes, it does. And, of course, Farm Bureau is the voice of agriculture for the farmers across the state. But for the work that the Mississippi Food Network does, I mean, they touch all 82 counties, obviously, Richard. Yeah. And their distribution of food through soup kitchens, food pantries, other homeless shelters, things like that. Gosh, nobody wants to go hungry. And the work that they're doing and the money that they're raising, I'm going to get to come up later this afternoon and going to visit, and I'm excited about seeing all these barbecue teams I'm being told by text this morning that are lined up everywhere and getting started cooking and everything else. So looks like it's a big event y'all have going on in my district.
I can attest to the fact that there is grill smoke that I've been watching for the last 45 minutes, wishing that there was breakfast on that grill, but I keep being told, no, it's getting ready for later in the day.
All right, now let me ask you this. So you see all the grill smoke and all that stuff. I mean, sort of like left field lounge at Mississippi State, huh?
Yeah. I mean, except there's not a baseball team that's losing in front of me right now, though. So, you set me up for that, Scott. I was going to be friendly, and here we are.
No. I will tell you, when Alex called me, just as a little bit of fun, when Alex called me about coming on, we talked about coming on this afternoon. I would be on this afternoon because I would be back home and be in the district. And then she said, "Oh, wait, I don't know. I don't know if you need to go on with the sports guys. I'm going to put you on with Richard."
I will tell you, at dinner last night we were talking about it, and I know that some of the folks that are going to be cooking and hanging out here are going to be making the trip to Starkville this weekend for Super Bulldog weekend. Got Kentucky coming in, and I can assure you the grills will be going again here in just a couple of days. Well,
they will be, but again, just with the barbecue competition, cook-off, what they're doing, what Farm Bureau is doing, and then of course with the golf tournament tomorrow, there'll be people coming in from all over the state. This will be a big event, and I've got to assume that Farm Bureau will probably make this an annual event, and I hope that they will come back to the Pearl River Resort and back to Philadelphia and Neshoba County whenever they can. And of course, obviously, we're looking forward to having y'all at the Neshoba County Fair in late July.
Absolutely. I heard it's going to be cool this year. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I don't know. It's either we always say it's either going to be hot and dusty or hot and muddy, so it's going to be one of the two. So, but I want to go back a minute, Richard, to again what Farm Bureau is doing. I don't want people to underestimate the importance of this and the importance of what this means to feeding the hunger across the state, and to be able to engage and be a part of raising funds and raising resources and having events to be able to address that. I mean, there's so many things that the private sector can do so much better than the public sector. The public sector can be a partner also
sure.
in those efforts, but it takes the private sector private sector can really step in and do a fantastic job of doing these type of projects across the state.
You know, kind of in getting ready for this, we were talking last night a little bit about the idea and where it came from. And Henry Hamble's been very involved with this. Henry's going to join us coming up in just a little bit. And it was a scenario where Mike McCormick kind of put his head together with Henry and it says, hey, we need to do something, and we need to make it not just relevant to Mississippi, but relevant to our cause. And they're like, farmers feed Mississippians, farmers feed the hungry, farmers feed the world. How do we tie this together? And it really is a project that makes so much sense on a lot of levels.
Well, absolutely. But then when you just look, Richard, also, let's get beyond the 2-day event that's going on up there, which is absolutely phenomenal in what Farm Bureau is doing, but what Farm Bureau does every other day of the year, 365 days a year, and advocating for the farmers, advocating for agricultural interests across the state. And that covers a lot of the ag is as everyone knows is our number one industry in the state, and
right.
But there's a lot of things that fall under ag. I mean you have I know up there in my area, poultry farms and cattle and just so many different things across the state. The diversity of the state in agriculture and Farm Bureau stands in the gaps every day, and I can assure you they do a phenomenal job of advocating for the farmers and the agricultural interest in the state to be sure that we don't have burdensome regulatory things that happen that make it harder to farm and harder to make a profit in agriculture. Yeah. And Farm Bureau is at the Capitol, not only at the Mississippi Capitol, but at the nation's capital and capitals across the country, advocating for the farmers and protecting, doing what they can to protect the interests of the agriculture. Be sure that we do have food on the table and be able to be sure that we do have food.
Scott Bounds is my guest, Appropriations B Committee Chairman, and represents District 44. I think it's good that you pointed out what you did a second ago, the diversity of the farm industry in the state of Mississippi, because it's real easy for us to pigeonhole into Mississippi Delta farmers, row crops, beans, corn, cotton, less of it than we used to have, maybe a little bit of rice sprinkled in some places. But when you broaden out beyond that, the poultry farmers, the sweet potato farmers, the tree farmers or timber farmers that we've got, there really is a lot of diversity within the quote-unquote farm community in Mississippi.
Well, it is, and of course in my district and there in East Central Mississippi where you all are now, we don't have obviously the spread out land like they do in the Mississippi Delta and
right.
and the crops and the row crops and things like that. Poultry is extremely big there. Cattle farming, you can ride through the county, through Neshoba County or any rural county across the state, especially in the hill countries and up in the northern part of the state where you're from, and you see these little patches of land, and they'll have 5 to 8, 10 cows. Some will have 40 cows on them. But people, they're not just those cows. I mean, those farmers that are raising those cattle and doing those things. It's part of the economy here in Mississippi, and we can't ever take that for granted. And just how big agriculture is in this state, with it being the number one industry in the state, but again, the diversity as you mentioned.
Scott, can you hang with me for just a few more minutes?
Yes, sir. I'll be glad to.
Scott Bounds, Mississippi House of Representatives. We're going to transition to a little different conversation coming back. We are waiting on the governor to call a special session. Scott's involved in appropriations. We'll talk a little bit about progress that is being made, perhaps behind the scenes, at least as much as he can tell us, toward moving toward a state budget, which I think we got to have. I think that's got to happen here before too much longer. We continue with you, Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. We're back right after this. Favorite thing about when we are on the road for these morning shows, I had the exact same experience at the Neshoba County Fair a couple of years ago. You get out there, it's quiet, nobody's moving around, sun just kind of starting to peek over the tree line, no need for sunglasses, and then all of a sudden it's like, if the sun would just be still, but it won't cooperate. So, sorry, Lance, I know you're making fun of me for having the sunglasses on.
No, I love the Costas, baby. That's how you play.
Yeah.
He got it going on, and Lance and I down here enclosed in the studio.
Yeah,
Richard.
got the
You know
the
what,
overhead lights.
Scott? Life is good. Life is good.
It is good.
Scott Bounds is my guest right now, Mississippi House of Representatives. He represents District 44, and he is chair of Appropriations B. We know the budget conversation is ongoing right now with leadership from the House and the Senate. Sine die without a budget, and for some that was disappointing, and for others it was just what you got to do. Where are we in terms of negotiations and progress and movement toward final resolution?
Okay, well, we get text every day, or we get questions I ask every day. When are y'all going back into session? When are you going back into session? Is it next week? Is it the end of June? Is it the 1st of June? I can't really definitively answer that. I will tell you that there are negotiations going on with the Senate, our Senate counterparts, on crafting the FY 2026 state budget that begins July 1st. There are active conversations happening. We have not reached an agreement, Richard, right now on the budget. We will reach an agreement. Obviously, state can't operate if we're not going to appropriate money for agencies to operate and things like that. But there are conversations happening, and on the budget itself, we're pretty close. I would think we're pretty close. We still do have some differences on how we may want to spend some of our capital expense funds. These are funds over and beyond revenues that we have received in the last few years above our budget estimates that we put into a fund. It's called capital expense, and it's typically used for doing repair and renovations and doing projects around the state that, right, on state projects. So that's where our differences are coming in right now on how much we may want to spend or how we want to spend that on those projects and things like that. As far as the operational side of the state budget, the administrative / operational side of the budget for state agencies, we're getting there. Let me put it like that. But we're not ready. It's funny, Richard. We could come to an agreement. And the governor has indicated that, he will call us back when we have an agreement. We're not going to go down there, and we don't want to camp out for 5 or 6, 7 days in a special session. We want to get in and get it done, and that's what the people want us to do. They want us to get down there and get it done. But I got to give credence to the staff, to our legislative staff, our budget staff. If we reached an agreement today, let's just say we did, which we're not going to reach an agreement today, just because a lot of us can't be down there today, but we will further conversations in the latter part of the week. But it takes the staff. It'll take the staff 3 to 4 days to actually prepare for a special session. And when I say that, I'm talking about reconciling the numbers that we agree upon, drafting the bills, things like that. It doesn't happen just overnight. It takes some time to do that. So, if we reached an agreement, we're still, we still got a few days of lead time that we need for the staff before we could actually come back. But there are.
Do you anticipate it being May, sometime in the month of May, when the special session is called, or do you think it goes into June?
Richard, just looking at the calendar and where we're at now, as I said, we're having positive discussions on the operational side of the budget. You get toward the the last full week in May, then that's bumping up on the Memorial Day holiday weekend, and it's if we reached an agreement maybe next week, we could probably get it done
right
before the end of May, but I don't think we want to get much too close to that holiday weekend, or maybe we do. Maybe that'll be the thing that pushes us to the edge, get down there and get out. But we do have to have an agreement. We're not going to go down there and just start negotiating, and we're going to have an agreement done with the Senate, the House and Senate, and we're going to get in there and get it done. And just in my view, Richard, and to the listeners, I mean, when we have that done, I think very, very, very realistically we can get this done in a long 1-day session or 2 days, and that's what we're shooting for.
Scott, let me ask you this. Visiting with Scott Bounds from the House of Representatives, he is Appropriations B Committee chairman, and there is a perception, right, wrong, or otherwise, but there is a perception that the House is more willing to spend some of the surplus money than the Senate is. Lieutenant Governor Hosemann has talked pretty openly about the fact that he wants to take a very conservative approach with the extra money, the money in the savings account, because of some of the unknown expenses that we all believe are on the horizon. The House under Speaker White has been maybe a little more aggressive towards some of those district spending projects. How are those two? And you may tell me I'm way off on that, and that's fine if I am. But if I'm not way off, then how do those two ideologies kind of meet in a happy place in the middle?
Well, that's a good observation. First of all, Richard, on your part, and then a good question. I will say that we have in excess, and let me get away from the capital expense fund just a minute. And again, the capital expense fund is monies that have come in over the last 2 or 3 years that have been over and above our revenue estimates and over and above what we have appropriated. It's just money that it's excess cash, and that's what it is. But I want to talk about our statutory saving accounts first. I mean, the rainy day fund, some of those funds, they are statutorily full right now. I mean, we can put into them, but by statute they are full. And but our capital expense fund. And
just for clarification, there was some talk about bumping up the percentage of revenue that the rainy day fund was going to require. Did that end up going into the final bill, or did it not? It's going to stay as it is.
So I think that's going to be what we call one of the transfer bills, and I do not think that did make it over the hump. I'm not opposed to that. I will say that our rainy day fund, or the official name, the Working Cash Stabilization Fund, is statutorily full. I think it's just north of $700 million. But in our capital expense fund, we're in excess of $1 billion of just reserve cash, Richard. And that money belongs to the taxpayers, okay? It doesn't belong to the legislature. It belongs to the taxpayers. And as far as the House, the House's position is that some of that money we need to be putting back into some local infrastructure projects across the state. Repair and renovation for buildings and things like that on state buildings, and just different projects across the state. As we are having these discussions, we're having discussions about what the critical needs are in those capital expense areas, and right now that's somewhere around the $40 million mark just for different things that we're going to have to do. I mean, if we don't spend anything else on capital expense, we're going to have to do those things. Just the critical needs that we're going to have to do. But I will say, in regard to your question, I'm not trying to evade your question, but as far as the House and the Senate, the House's position is that we would like to work with our Senate counterparts to have local infrastructure projects and things like that for the members to be able to go to take home, and it's not port projects, it's things that are of benefit to their constituents. I mean, things that deal with infrastructure.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's the word that I had kind of floating. Like, people hear port projects and you're like, well, yeah, that's extra stuff. But at the same time, part of the job of the representatives and the senators is to represent their districts and fight for money for projects that are needed in home districts.
Yeah, absolutely they are. And look, I will tell you, I mean, you can look down through the projects list that we've done, over the last 2 or 3 years. And let me I'm going to go down another street right here too.
We got 1 minute.
We got 1 minute. Okay, we all these things extra that we have done in the last 2 or 3 years we have not put on the state's credit card. We have not bonded that, so we're not incurring any debt service every year on that. We're taking these cash reserves and we're putting them back into back into the economy of the state, but it's for the public good and benefit of infrastructure projects and things like that across the state. So we're going to continue to work with our Senate counterparts, and we're going to get this done, Richard. I can assure the public of that.
July 1st is the deadline, start of the new fiscal year, and Scott Bounds says it will be done before then. Scott, thanks so much for coming by this morning. Look forward to seeing you later this summer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard.
Scott Bounds represents District 44. He is Appropriations B chairman on the House side of things, trying to get all of the pieces lined up and put in the right order and get that budget deal done. Henry Hamill from Mississippi Farm Bureau joins us. Coming up next.